GOAT debate time. NFL.com recently listed its top 5 GOATs of all time. Tom Brady coming in at number 1, MJ coming in at 2, Wayne Gretzky 3, Tiger 4, and Serena Williams rounding out the top 5. We now welcome in Louis Riddick to the show. And Louis, in case you missed it earlier, Max Kellerman, not a fan of this list. So if anyone's joining us at home, Max, can you re-educate us on your top 5 GOATs, please?
Well, first, this is a truly awful list with tons of recency and NFL bias in it. Tom Brady, number 1. In order to be the GOAT of all GOATs, you have to usually be considered the best player in your sport. Tom Brady rarely was, in fact. There were years where Peyton Manning was considered better, Aaron Rodgers was considered better. He had some years where he was considered number 1, but not like Michael Jordan, who is the answer, who for 10 straight years or 10 years was the best player in the world and also won the most and also never got to a 7th game and also put up the greatest numbers of all time, even in retrospect. Like Babe Ruth, who did play pre-integration, that is true. But no one ever in any top baseball league around the world, including the major leagues, Negro leagues, minor leagues, Japanese leagues, ever dominated both offense and defense. Babe Ruth was one of the all-time clutch pitchers in baseball, like Babe Ruth did, not Josh Gibson, not Satchel Paige, not anyone, Barry Bonds or anyone. No one did both. Muhammad Ali was not the best pound for pound of all time, but boxing stratifies according to weight. Muhammad Ali would have beaten the hell out of Sugar Ray Robinson. He's bigger than him. Tom Brady's not being compared to, Doug Flutie was a better pound-for-pound quarterback, so let's demote Tom Brady, right? That's not fair to Ali. And then there's off the field of play impact. Ali's number 1. That's the top 3. And if you want to keep going, we can. Serena Williams hit the highest peak in the history of her sport and also has almost the most majors and almost the most time spent as number 1. And number 5, Tom Brady, who deserves to be in the top 5. By the way, there are a lot of guys a lot of athletes I'm putting him ahead of there. Sometimes was the best player in the world, though not usually. And at 43, he just won his 7th Super Bowl. He's on the list, barely in the top 5.
My top 5, I got Ali at number 1 because I take off the court adversity and what you've had to overcome into consideration. You don't get to live on the court or field of play and just stay there all day, every day, and be insulated from the outside world in order to compete. You have to be exposed to it all, which means adversity, trials and tribulations, just all of those things just get in the way. And for him to overcome what he overcame with the government coming after you, with white America coming after you, with you being stripped of the license to fight and being denied the opportunity to fight and defend your crown for three plus years, to come back to regain the heavyweight championship by going up against a guy in George Foreman that had literally had people scared for a boxer's life when whoever went into the ring against him. I put Ali right there. Obviously, MJ would be number 2. I think Serena Williams would be number 3 because she's absolutely sensational and the greatest of all time at her respective sport, as far as I'm concerned, even though she's one shy of capturing Margaret Court's all-time singles Grand Slam titles of 24. Serena's at 23. And then I think about number 4, I think about Bill Russell. And the only reason I put Bill Russell in there is not because of the 11 titles in 13 years, but it was 2 as a player's coach, not just a player. And also it was him working in Boston, working through the civil rights era, accomplishing what he accomplished with that level of adversity faced against him and what have you. I think about Bill Russell in that regard and what he had to endure and had to overcome, where he is still scarred to this very day because of what he was subjected to. And somehow, some way, he just continued to win championships. And then obviously, I look at that. And then if we could talk about Tom Brady or Wayne Gretzky at number 5. That's where I'm at with that list, my personal opinion. It will not include Babe Ruth because Babe Ruth did not have to compete against black players. And as a black man, there's no way in hell I'm putting Babe Ruth on my top 5 all-time list. You didn't go up against black players. And we all know when it comes to athletics, black folks got something to say about that.
Yeah.
In terms
Although
of
you
elite
could ask
category.
black players at the time, I'm sure they'd be like Babe Ruth.
There you go.
Yeah.
You never went against them. So you ain't on my top 5. No.
Yeah, you know what? I really like the discussion when it kind of goes off the court or off the playing field and you're really talking about impact. You're really talking about societal impact, global impact when you're talking about GOATs, because I just tweeted about that just the other day with my number one with Michael Jordan in terms of how all right, obviously, not only did he transform basketball, or rather the way we watch basketball and the way in which we look at basketball players, but I mean, he's just one of those guys who now continues to, now almost 20 years after he last played basketball, he continues to redefine what it means to be a sportsman and have an impact in so many different areas. Bill Russell, look, the longevity with which he was able to really just achieve at a high level 11 championships in 13 years, Stephen A., as you referred to, and the fact that he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and he was a coach as well. I mean, and this is despite the fact that, look, I know people want to point to stats. He never averaged over 20 points per game in a season. Correct me if I'm wrong in terms of when he played, but his impact on the defensive end and just his championship pedigree. Serena Williams, I think we all sat and watched her last night, and the fact that she's just one away in terms of tying the record for major Grand Slam titles is just ridiculous. She's another one who, again, has impacted individuals globally in terms of what they believe they can achieve because of her dominance. Tiger Woods, look, I mean, there were commercials about people, about young minorities across the world, around the globe, saying, "I am Tiger Woods." Well, why were they saying that? Because he really kind of opened the doors and made people see another avenue with which to succeed in a sport where maybe they didn't feel as though they could succeed. And that was because of his dominance, his sheer dominance, and the fact that he is still knocking on the door as far as all-time records, as far as major championships. And who knows, maybe he eclipses it, maybe he doesn't. But just the fact that he's there, given everything that he has overcome, it's just fantastic and spectacular to me. And again, the global impact part of it. At number 5, I have LeBron and Tom together at that point. Because, look, I think with LeBron James, I've heard Kendrick Perkins talk about this numerous different times, about the fact that ever since this guy was in high school, since he was 16, 17 years old, people have kind of deemed him the chosen one, the king, the guy who had expectations put on him that were really just ridiculous, in the stratosphere. And he has met those expectations time and time and time again, where people have, and he has had to, bear the weight of being compared to people who are on this list, like Michael Jordan. And he has answered the bell time and time and time again, taken 3 different franchises to NBA championships, continues right now to pass the eye test, which I think a lot of this, has to do with as well. When you watch LeBron James play, you aren't going to tell me that if you go back and you YouTube some of the greatest athletes of all time across all sports, that he is not one of the greatest athletes to ever walk the face of this planet. You just cannot deny that, on top of the fact that he has won. And then Tom Brady, look, himself. From a pure athletic standpoint, he's not one of the greatest athletes of all times. He's one of the greatest winners of all time. He's had the biggest impact in the greatest team sport of all time, no question about that. 7 Super Bowls, 10 appearances, that speaks for itself. The numerous records that he has and where he has come from. He wasn't the chosen one. He was a guy who wasn't even expected to maybe even make New England's roster as a rookie. He was the 5th quarterback on the roster. That's what I respect the most about Tom Brady, is where he's come from and what he has accomplished and how he continues to accomplish it in the greatest team sport that all of us have ever watched, on TV or otherwise. I mean, that's what football is.
I respect your list based on your criteria. I would say that Tiger Woods has fewer majors than Nicklaus, also far fewer second and third place finishes than Nicklaus. But when you add your criteria, I respect it, except where's Muhammad Ali? If you're going to have that criteria, Ali's got to be on there.
You're right. And you know what? I struggled with it. I really did. Okay. And I don't want to be accused of recency bias, because I'm one of those people who considers myself to be a historian when it comes to sports. And Muhammad Ali is someone who I was very little when he was in his prime, or rather when he was nearing the end of his career. I was still a young boy, but I understand the impact that he has had in the greater context of sports overall. So you're right. He probably should be on there.
And he should be number 1 if that's your criteria. I don't think there's anyone really close to him. But I want to say something else, guys, about Bill Russell. I respect Bill Russell if you're talking about the all-time winners, the whole thing. He and Tom Brady are sort of in the same category. But you know what? Yogi Berra won 10 World Series championships, was a 3-time MVP, hit cleanup. Every pitcher that came to the Yankees improved because he called the games. No one calls him the GOAT correctly. Maybe he's the GOAT catcher, just like maybe Bill Russell's the GOAT center. But when we're talking about the GOAT of all GOATs, it ain't Bill Russell, it ain't Tom Brady, and it ain't Yogi Berra.
Well,
we're talking about Michael Jordan and that ilk. They were clearly just the best
Max,
forever, and they won the most.
Max, first of all, I'm allergic to putting Bill Russell and Tom Brady in the same sentence because while Bill Russell had to endure such incredible adversity, particularly in the same locale, we all know what an angel Tom Brady has been treated like in that area. He's been deified in the whole Boston era, in the whole Boston area. Those are apples and oranges if ever there was one. Now, let me get to your point about Tiger Woods because I'm interested in both of y'all takes on this. Tiger Woods, obviously, as far as I'm concerned, was just a phenomenal talent. And you can call him to go to whatever. I'm not a golf aficionado. I didn't follow golf until not even remotely until Tiger Woods arrived because I never felt as a black man I was welcome to the sport, if I'm being totally candid about it. But I will tell you this. When I think about Tiger Woods, as much as I revere him because he was phenomenal, here's where he falls off that list to me. When adversity hit, where was he? I'm talking about it was self-inflicted. We understand what went on with him and his family and stuff like that and, and the police and all of this other stuff. We got all of that and then the divorce and that's all his business. I'm not trying to get into that. What I'm saying is that as we look at our list, when we talk about Ali, when we talk about Jordan, when we talk about Serena, when we talk about Bill Russell, we talk about these folks and they're deified to some degree because when faced with adversity, they didn't wilt beneath the pressure or the microscope. They ascended. Now, that's not to say that Tiger Woods never came back and resurrected himself. He just won the Masters a couple of years ago. I get that. My point is that how many years have we looked at Tiger Woods? And in fairness to him, it wasn't just the adversity in his personal life. It was also injuries with the back and all of that stuff. I get it. But really, where the fall began immediately was when he had that situation years ago, back around 2008 or so, and the cops got involved, and he sat up there and looked like he was drugged for a conference where he was like, I am so sorry. And you know what? And his game was sorry for a long time thereafter. That's my point about Tiger Woods. The level of adversity others overcame when he was faced with that, he did not respond the same as those guys, which is why when we talk top 5, it's not that he's not one of the greatest. It's not that he's not top 10. Tiger is special. We get all of that. When we talk about this particular list, guys showed tremendous intestinal resolve that, to me, Tiger Woods did not have, at least at one point.
Riddick, real quick, let me just say, I agree with you, Stephen A. He did win the Masters, though, very recently. And
yes,
and I really do think the reason he fell off, we did a lot of armchair shrink or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people played amateur psychologist, but he had a bad back. I have a bad back. Trust me, you can't. When it's bad, you can't move. And he talked about that. When the back got better, he won the Masters, right? But I do agree with you in terms of impact. That's right. When it got tough, where was Tiger for like 10 years? And on top of that, he's not in his own sport. There's a guy more accomplished than him. More majors, more second-place finishes, more third-place finishes. So I don't think any cultural impact he had in golf outweighs what you just said when he's not the Michael Jordan of golf. When, like Michael Jordan, 10 years, no one was close to him. That's a different thing. I don't think he belongs on the top 5, maybe in the top 10.
Well, look,
all right, excuse me, guys. Can I get in here? Because I got some breaking news. And you're going to love this, Louis Riddick, being a guy who knows Philly so well. And Max, it's really Max's specialty. Carson Wentz